We bought that one last year.
But they just replaced one down there.
6:30. Call the meeting to order. We'll start with public comment, as usual. Public comment, if you raise your hand, I'll recognize you. Hi there. Come on up. State your name, face the select board, and you have 3 minutes.
I'm Anne Marie Gazowski from Lamprey Lane, and I would like to say that I've been someone who has really enjoyed swimming at Wheelwright Pond off the dock, and I hope that the select board will take it into advisement to repair it and put it in again this year.
Okay,
Thank you.
John? Anybody else? All right. Next, we'll move on to, let's see, we've had public comment. Let's move on to number 3, Catherine Fisher, Conservation Commission member.
Hi, I'm here to request permission on behalf of the Wyrick family to bury Dick Wyrick's ashes underneath the pine that's in place behind this building, and also to place a small marker, a granite marker, in that area. Don Quigley is looking for a stone, and I think he's found one that's about 12 inches wide and 14 to 16 inches tall. It's irregularly shaped because he doesn't want it to look like a tombstone. And the wording hasn't been decided yet, but the general feeling is that less is more, and they just want to have Dick's name on there and maybe a word or two about the trees. And the family's also thinking about perhaps having a small bench up there, but it wouldn't be big, and I don't know. Right at this point, hasn't been determined, the dimensions or anything like that.
What kind of bench? Stone bench or?
No, the one that Bonnie's congregation, she sent me some pictures this week. Her congregation put together some wooden benches for to put. They're called resting benches, and they put them along the trails in the Durham conservation area. So they're very, as she said, unfussy and sturdy like Dick, and that she thought he would like them, and that they'd be easily moved for maintenance or mowing or things like that.
Police chief, you have any problem with that?
I don't.
Fire chief here? I just want to make sure there's no issues associated with materials or anything that might be parked around.
It's far enough back off that.
Scott, anything?
I would the only comment I would have is we can do the same thing we did when we did the Passage burial over at the transfer station. The same language, that it's not there for perpetuity, that there's anything that needs to be done, this town will have the privilege to do it. But it's the same letter that we sent to the Passage family. We wanted to bury Mrs. Passage.
Okay.
Okay.
Do we need to, well, we can cover that. Okay, so I'd like to make a motion.
Okay.
All right, first, move to grant Bonnie Wyrick permission to bury Dick Wyrick's ashes underneath the white pine sapling behind the Lee Public Safety Complex at some point during 2018. Can I get a second?
Second.
And then, second motion, move to grant Bonnie Wyrick permission to have an engraved granite marker placed at the site where Dick Wyrick's ashes are buried underneath the white pine sapling behind the Lee Public Safety Complex, and allow a small bench to be placed in the vicinity. Can I get a second?
Second.
Anything else?
Just as long as
Just the language,
just as long as I understood that the language, the same language we put in the Passage letter, goes into the White letter.
Perhaps you know something more than I do, but I wasn't certain where they were going to place that stone. It's going to be in there somewhere, but I wasn't sure if it was going to be with the pine or among the chestnuts.
Okay. Understand. All right? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Done.
Thank you.
You want-
We gotta go to a meeting.
Okay.
From one to the next.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Number 4 is Randy Stevens. He's not here. So we'll move on. Number 5, Larry Kinberg, Rec Commission Chairman, response to allegations against ORYA.
Good evening.
Good evening.
On April 24th, 2018, the Town of Lee Recreation Commission held a special meeting to discuss the recent ORYA incident as reported by various news agencies worldwide. In attendance were myself, Commission member Annette Brown, James Lonano, and Michael Bardero. ORYA Director Matthew Glode and 3 members of the public were also in attendance. The Commission was made aware that during an ORYA baseball draft meeting on March 21st, 2018, at Libby's Bar and Grill in Durham, a coach made the following statement as reported in Foster's. Quote, "If she ends up on my team, I'll have the pitcher bean her right in the ear hole and she'll quit instantly," referring to an 11-year-old female player. The issue was discussed at the April 23rd Select Board meeting, and the decision here was to take a wait-and-see position as to whether or not to follow suit with Durham's decision to withhold funds to ORYA. I received a email from Todd Selig, administrator in Durham, and I'd just like to read what they had voted on, just the excerpt of their meeting. It says, "Therefore, the town of Durham will not release already approved funding for ORYA until the town council is satisfied with the outcome of an independently conducted investigation into the recently alleged incident involving the draft for baseball teams and any remedial steps that are deemed to be necessary. Moreover, funding in 2019 and future years is contingent on the town council being able to appoint 1 representative of its choosing to the ORYA Board of Directors." This was approved by a vote of 9-0 by the Town Council of Durham on April 16, 2018. The commission members, after hearing from Mr. Glode and members of the public on April 24th, agreed that this incident is reprehensible, unconscionable, and totally unacceptable. We felt strongly that along with Durham, Lee needs to be out in front of the issue and not take a wait-and-see position. Therefore, we have drafted the following letter to you, the Select Board, stating our position and recommendations. And I'd like to read that into record. Dated May 1st, 2018. Dear honorable members of the Town of Lee Select Board, the Recreation Commission, as a partner with the town and the Oyster River Youth Association, ORYA, is deeply concerned about the recent news involving alleged conduct by a baseball coach, as has been reported by local and national media. The Commission feels the alleged conduct is unconscionable and is thus far not satisfied with the amount of information provided by ORYA about this incident, even after public meetings with the Select Board on April 23rd, 2018, and the Commission on April 24th, 2018. As the Commission works with oversight and coordination of programs run by ORYA, we feel it is our duty as appointed members of the Commission to demand more detailed information about the alleged incident, the internal investigation conducted by ORYA, and the ultimate findings and conclusion of that investigation. As ORYA is funded in part through tax dollars from the Town of Lee, we must ensure that a full and thorough investigation is conducted, that all culpable parties are held accountable, and that corrective measures are immediately taken to ensure that all ORYA children have a safe environment to participate in free from harassment by coaches, players, and parents. The Commission is aware of certain measures being taken by the Town of Durham in response to this series of events. The Commission recommends that the Town of Lee take the same steps to include the following. 1, require ORYA to complete a financial audit. 2, require ORYA to provide a more detailed summary of the complaint, the investigation, and specific corrective steps to be taken. 3, withhold town funding to ORYA for the upcoming fiscal year until such information is provided to the Town of Lee and the Town of Lee feels comfortable that no other children are at risk of harassment or other objectionable behavior. The safety of our community's children is of utmost importance to this Commission. We feel such measures are necessary to ensure their continued safety. Respectfully submitted, members of the Town of Lee Recreation Commission. We cannot stress enough the importance of providing for the safety of our children and residents, especially providing town-sponsored and funded programs. A clear message must be sent, firmly stating that bad behavior will not be tolerated. The Recreation Commission will continue to monitor this situation and will advise the Select Board as necessary. People continue to come forward telling us of their experiences with ORYA, and frankly, some are quite troubling. We trust that the Select Board will make the right decision and work to protect the children. Tonight, we do have several members, or several people, residents of Lee, whether or not they wish to speak or not, or you wish to hear them. I know that Mr. Troy Broussard, who is a resident of Lee and a 20-year law enforcement veteran who brought this matter to light, is here this evening, and I would strongly urge you to have him speak to you this evening. And that's the end of my comments right now.
I got a question. 1 and 2 is pretty straightforward. 3 and the withholding. When do you, you're asking for more detailed information, I understand that. You're asking for other things, and so these things will not happen again, and obviously put up some safeguards. When would your committee feel comfortable to release funds? I didn't hear that part. What's the goalpost?
Okay. I think the goalpost is getting a complete independent investigation of the matter. An investigation was held, but it was internal, and there's some questions about that that have been raised. Your Recreation Commission is not comfortable with the responses that we got from the director of ORYA, and we have received the official report and read that. And I have been in contact with Todd Selleck in Durham. They're not quite comfortable with it either. They're discussing it tonight. My suggestion and recommendation is that we follow suit with Durham, and hopefully Madbury will follow suit, because I think the only way to clean this up is for the 3 towns to work together to ensure the safety of our children.
Thank you.
So I think, in direct answer to your question, John, I think that once we get an independent investigation and we have the facts from that, not the internal investigation, but independent, then we can discuss at that point. I hope that makes sense.
Thank you.
Selectman Mudby, anything?
No, nothing in terms of, for Mr. Kinberg, no.
Well, I have a few things. I did read the Oyster River report that they released several times, and actually, to be honest with you, I felt pretty comfortable with everything they'd done. They were very transparent, and I thought it was very thorough. They also had a law enforcement officer from Stratham, I guess he's a deputy sheriff, as part of the committee. And then I thought about the fact that, at least for the past 10 years, we've averaged 500 and some odd children active in the ORYA projects. And during that 10, which is a little bit over 5,000 children that participated, we've never had any issues come forward, at least that I'm aware of, to the board. Certainly nothing like this. And as you read the report from Oyster River, it's obvious that this was not an issue with a little girl. This was an issue of the relationship between the coaches and the father. That's what it was. None of them wanted the little girl on their team because they knew if she came on the team, they would have to interface with the father, and that was not something they wanted to do. That's what really the whole issue was about. I understand that the coach that made the comment was obviously, it was a stupid comment to make, and certainly he needed to be dealt with, and as I understand it, the ORYA dealt with him and dismissed him.
For 1 year.
I don't know if it was for 1 year, but
That was mentioned in our meeting. Matt Glover had said that.
okay.
Specifically said it was for after 1 year they would consider bringing him back in. So it's
Consider
basically-
bringing him back in.
But it's basically
Okay.
for 1 year.
So to withhold the money, give me some information on that. Number one, the money doesn't get released until July. I would assume by July we'll have any more details that come out on this that are significant. But beyond that, we're going to withhold the money, and the 500 children that do participate, as best I could tell, all of this problem seems to rest within the baseball zone. I haven't seen anything for any of the other 5 or 6 activities that take place. But what do? You just shut the program down, don't fund it, and wait until such time that we are satisfied, or you are satisfied, the committee's satisfied with what's supposed to take place, that says, yes, now we fixed it? That's what would happen?
I think that there's a lot more to this than what you're saying. And the more people that I talk to that are coming forward and listening to more people describe some of the issues and problems and the bullying from coaches and other cultural aspects of this organization and circling of wagons around situations instead of dealing with situations, I think it's a bigger picture. And I think this is kind of the tip of the iceberg. You don't sit in a bar. You don't sit in a bar and threaten to harm a child. I don't care what the circumstances are. I don't care if it's a parent. I don't care if it's an uncle or another person. You just don't do that when you're in a position that these coaches are in, or a teacher, or anybody, or myself. You don't do that. It's unacceptable. And we need to send a very strong message that it's not acceptable. So how do you send a strong message to an organization like ORYA? I'm not saying it's a bad organization. Don't get me wrong. I'm saying we have a problem in that organization that needs to be dealt with. Our tax dollars are going into that. My tax dollars are going into that.
So are mine.
Yeah, everybody's. Okay. The only way that you can affect a change on an organization like this is financially. I'm not saying shut them down. I'm not saying we're going to shut them down. I'm saying that we ask them to make sure that we get the information that's necessary. I think Durham's on the right track with this. Since they're giving about $44,000 a year, it's the largest chunk.
I understand that they have 900 and something children participating. We have 500 and something. That's what drives the monies.
You heard from Mr. Broussard the other night at our meeting, but I think the rest of us,
I did hear from
Yeah.
him, absolutely.
and I think others need to hear from him, his story, because he's the one that brought this forward. And I think you need to hear firsthand. And I would definitely invite him to the podium and ask him to discuss it with you. And or anybody else here that wishes to speak on this issue. Because the more I'm hearing, the more I'm finding that I don't like certain things, and I think that we need to make a stand, and I think we better draw a line in the sand on this behavior.
Okay.
It's not acceptable.
Okay.
Okay?
Mr. Broussard, would you like to address the board?
My name is Troy Broussard. I live at 124 Wednesday Hill Road. Actually, when I met with the Recreation Commission, was really the first thing that I came in a public setting to discuss this. My hopes were, once I brought this to the attention of ORYA, it would be addressed and handled appropriately. Unfortunately, it hasn't, and I think what Larry was saying is absolutely correct. It's very much deeper. I've been involved with the organization for 6 or 7 years. And yes, baseball is a part of it, but it kind of spreads out from there. ORYA is a good organization. Please don't get me wrong. My 5 children went through all aspects of it. But there are problems. And unless we stand together and deal with the problems, they're going to keep on going on. One of the biggest issues that I have is not only with what happened on the draft, because that's a very serious issue. And that's something that we cannot forget. But let me talk about what had happened to myself and Kurt O'Quinn, the other coach that came forward after this became public. We were isolated from the rest of the coaches. We were isolated from ORYA. Our practice schedules were changed, where one of the teams got 5 practices, being the team that the president of baseball had, and mine and Kurt O'Quinn's team had 3. You say this is a small incident, but this is what we're feeling as far as retaliation. During the questioning of myself, I had to repeat my story 3 times. One to Ben Jeans, president of ORYA, over the phone. I got a call at 9:45 on a Wednesday evening, April 11th, from Matt Globe asking me to come down to ORYA board to testify in front of them. I'm like, it's 9:45, Matt, I can't come down right now. He said, well, can I put you on speakerphone? And so again, I gave my testimony in front of the investigative board. I was asked to come back Friday night. This time when I came back, it was more of interrogation as far as the circumstances surrounding it, and that's just how I felt. And believe me, 20 years in law enforcement, I know what an interrogation is, and that's exactly what it was. It was an interrogation. Besides that, there has been no communication with ORYA Baseball, myself, and Kurt. Again, we're very much isolated. Matt Globe called a meeting with ORYA Baseball coaches, excluding Kurt and myself, to discuss the issues. Why we weren't invited, you're going to have to ask him. But this is what we're feeling for bringing this forward. And the ironic thing is, part of their solution is holding a class about mandatory reporting. So if this what happens to a coach that does report something that happens, no one is going to step forward because they're fearful of retaliation. And it is happening to us every day. That's the reason why I think we need to do something, because there is more than just that one coach saying something. There is a lot more. And unless we come in together with all 3 towns, then it's just going to go unanswered. And like Larry said, it's not about shutting down the program. I don't want to shut down the program. I still have 2 young boys that participate. But I want my boys to go and feel safe. I want the younger children to come through and the parents to feel safe with the programs. So that's why it's important to do this. And like Larry said, the only way to hit ORYA, so they understand that you're serious, is financially, because that's the only way that it's going to affect them. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
Not this time.
One of the things in terms of reading the report, there seemed to be, and Selectman Brown alluded to it before, in terms of there was a prior relationship that you had with this particular person. Can you tell me what, from your point of view, caused that? Because someone says, I don't want that girl on my team because then I have to deal with the father.
Sure.
So that's his side of the story.
Right.
Can I hear your side of the story in terms of what
Why this came
caused all
about?
that? Yes, please.
So my understanding, and I got more understanding after the fact, because as we were going through the draft and comments were going back and forth, and I think I used the word hatred in the rec commission meeting, towards the father, really came out, and I wasn't sure of the whole understanding. But what had happened was, very briefly, is 2 or 3 years ago, there was a complaint made by the father against the coordinator of the majors, Pete Ventura. My understanding is it was founded, that there was a threat that was made, Pete was suspended, and now the animosity started to build. So again, it goes back to problems that occurred. Yes, this is an isolated incident that happened with the parents, or the father in this case. Threat was made to the daughter, and one of the things the board asked me, he said, well, would the threat be carried out? I can't answer that, and I would never for anybody, because you have no idea what someone's intention is when they give a threat like that. But you have to think to yourself, there's 3 parts. There's the thought process, there's the speaking, and there's the action. 2 of the 3 were done.
Well, the threat used the name of a young man who I assume was a pitcher. And that young man's name was released to the press, which I think is
totally wrong.
as abhorrent as anything else. His family and himself are both under a lot of pressure out of this.
Totally agree.
And that to me really bothered me as part of the reaction of Durham, to be honest with you, because I think that was just, well, it's just against all the rules to release the name
You know what,
of the minor.
I'm not sure how it got released. I was contacted over and over again. I received,
Well, we know how it was released.
but in that aspect, you're correct. I think, I think the child's name absolutely no child's name should be released in that manner. You know, unfortunately, Kurt and myself's name were released, and we're the ones that probably got the most press out of it, and felt the most. And to be quite honest, I always say I will always do it the same way. However, we, I think, felt the rap of coming forward and doing the right thing. And it has never been recognized by ORWA, nor have they come forward and said, we condone what the coach said. They've never even admitted what the coach had said in the report, and I think that's what Larry is looking at. You know, we need more information. The public needs to know what's going on, so we can hold certain people accountable that need to be held accountable.
And who would this commission, when you talk about that you want another, if you would, an independent investigation, who do you see doing that?
I don't have an answer to that, but Todd Selleck said that there were outside investigators that they use when situations come up. So that's the only answer I can give you on that.
Okay.
I had a couple more questions. Larry?
Yeah. You know, the complete financial audit,
Who's going to do the financial audit if this goes?
I believe they've been requested to have a financial audit completed by the town of Durham.
And what are we looking for in the audit?
I would just let Durham take the lead on that. I do not know on the financial audit. I'm more concerned with the threat against children. That's my concern.
I was asked the town administrator, has there ever been an audit of Oyster River Youth Association?
I mean, not that I'm aware of, but I don't know that we would be aware of it.
Okay,
Usually audits are done on that size of an organization are done,
because it's,
and external because it's the expense of doing it, because you know how much ours
yes,
costs.
absolutely.
But usually it's, organizations that size, they don't do external audits, they do them internally. So, yeah, but I don't know what a financial audit is gonna give you, Larry, in terms of misappropriation of funds and stuff. I don't think that has anything
No,
to do with it.
that's not my
So-
point. That's not my point, Scott. I think I'm just following the lead of Durham because they had requested that, and I'm just kind of mirroring
Okay,
their request to try to get some consensus on how to move forward with this. And like I said before, I think it should be a concerted effort between Durham, Lee, and Madbury to address this issue. I know they're meeting tonight. I spoke with Todd Selleck earlier today. They're not real happy with the report down there, and I know that there's some counselors that are going to be doing some drilling and grilling also. Madbury, I haven't been able to contact anybody there, so I don't know exactly what's going on, but I do know that Mr. Klein is at that meeting tonight to see what's going on. I think also, too, if I can say one other thing, I'm also deeply concerned, only 2 people came forward with regard to this. Again, we're talking about threatening to injure a child. Only 2 people came forward to this. I believe it was 6 others that pulled the Sergeant Schultz routine from, you know.
Holy
So-
zeros?
And that kind of bothers me, you know, where's the character of these people? So I think it's a cultural thing within the organization. When I've consulted businesses, that's one of the things that we've looked at right from the start. Culture starts at the top and works down. And I think that may very well be an issue here from what I'm hearing.
Am I remembering correctly, the Durham police investigated this and found no criminality?
They did not investigate it.
I thought they did.
No, the only thing I know is what I read, where they had Stratham, deputy sheriff, on the board. He issued a report, a separate report, which I read today, that basically said that he felt as though, one, the comment, as bad as it was,
Okay.
that the young girl was never really in any danger of being hurt. It was just one of those stupid comments that people make when they're...
I'll ask the question on Wednesday. That meeting is.
I'm sorry?
There's a meeting on Wednesday where we were invited. And
You're the representative?
Yeah.
That's right, I remember that from last time. You were here?
I'll ask that
No, I
question.
wasn't here.
Okay. Well, that's why.
That explains it better.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Larry. Suggestions, questions, comments?
Well, I think personally, I think it warrants, some kind of further investigation myself. I don't think there's anything wrong with digging a little bit deeper to make sure these things don't happen again, so I'm really comfortable with that. The financial audit, I'm kind of like sitting on the fence because I don't know what we're looking for. If we felt there's maluse of funds or something, I think I'd probably be very comfortable going after that, but right now I'm not sure what's going on. Withholding funds is just a lever, of course, just to keep the pressure on to make sure that something's going to happen. I'm on the fence at that point. I think Larry makes a very valid argument, at least the commission does at this time.
Well, if I remember right, there was a vote in the last meeting relative to the withholding of funds. And it was decided not to make, if you would, not to make a decision. I don't know what the exact words were. I wasn't here.
I thought we voted to wait and see what the report.
Okay.
That's correct.
So that's out. I'd like to see what they have to say on the meeting on Wednesday, personally. I don't know about the financial audit. It's gonna be expensive. I don't know what it's gonna show us. And in terms of withholding funds, funds aren't released until July 1st anyways.
Right.
So we've got a couple of months or a month and a half. But also in terms of, depends in terms of, that's about 28,000.
Yeah, somewhere in that zone.
They're not gonna not operate with that. They can still operate with that because most of their money comes from fees that they charge the parents. So you're gonna crimp them a little bit, but I don't think you're gonna stop them.
So we have some time until you sit on that board at this point.
I don't know, yeah, it's not a board, it's just a meeting.
Just a meeting, at least you'll have more
Yeah,
information at that
but
time.
also at that time, hopefully Madbury sends somebody so we can see what their thoughts are.
So why don't we, with Chair's permission, maybe just wait until Scott can report back to us at that point, then we'll
Yeah,
continue this discussion?
Yeah.
Can I at least tell them in terms of our indication or inclinations in terms of what these requests are? I'm not in favor of financial audit at this particular time.
Either one.
And in terms of further investigation, I'm in favor of doing that. I don't remember what the other one
Just
was.
withholding funds.
Financial audit withholding funds.
Well, one's the financial audit, the other one's a further investigation, a detailed report
Okay.
of a detailed investigation.
So if I can tell them that we're in favor of doing some more investigating, but not withholding funds or financial audit at this particular time, is that the thought process?
Or we could say that we just simply will hold to the decision we made in the last meeting until such time as this
Or new evidence or
new evidence, whatever comes out, and then we'll make the final decision.
Can I ask one question? I don't know who's best to answer this. Maybe the meeting on Wednesday, but a few people have alluded to other things, other people. I haven't heard any of those other things, so I don't know if there's other information that can be shared, but I'm not sure. I'm seeing this as one incident, but people keep alluding to other things that have happened. I don't know if there's any other information that's available.
Is there any other comment from the audience relative to Oyster River Youth Association, any issues?
Issues, or I just have a couple comments that I'd like to add to what Larry said.
Okay. Please come up, state your name.
Tanya Carlton, 24 Sawyer Road. As a taxpayer, and I do have 2 children that both play for ORYA, there are a couple different things that I'd like to see us do as a town. As a taxpayer, our funds are going to this organization, so I think knowing where those funds are going is where we're really thinking as a town, or as taxpayers. We just want to know where that money's going. We know that we have fees that we pay. They're using the fields for free. So where is the money going? What are they using it for? So I think it would be important to know if Durham thinks there may be a misappropriation of funds, then maybe they know something that we don't. Maybe it might be worth looking into. But as a taxpayer, we're paying $22,000 plus I'm paying all the fees for my kids to play within these programs. Where's that money going? So that would be my interest. Also, I'd like to see our town hold them a little bit more accountable for the board, just as Durham is. So Durham's asking that they have a town-appointed board member. So I would really like to see Lee take that lead as well, and really move towards that so that we know who is on the board. They talked a little bit about the issue that the father had with P. Ventura. A threat was made to the father, and he is now back on the board, and he was part of that meeting on that night. So I think that's also something that needs to be looked into. When you talked about the law enforcement officer, he was the coordinator of the basketball program. So is that unbiased? Just some food for thought. This is an estimated $500,000 a year that this program is bringing in. That's just an estimate that I've heard. So I don't call it a small organization by any means, and they should be able to complete a financial audit on those funds. That's about it. And I've had experience in the past with the programs. My kids have had great experiences in most of the programs, but we have had similar experiences as some other people with the baseball program as well.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just make one point?
Are you going to make the point that I want to make?
I don't know, just the composition of the ORYA board, which is available on their website. There's 10 members, as I understand it. 5 of them live in Durham, 3 of them live in Lee, and 2 of them live in Manbury. So just to make sure everybody's aware, there certainly is town representation on the board, although, again, not appointed. And I have no idea whether they just volunteer and how they get on there. But yeah, not appointed by any of the town boards, but they are representatives from the 3 different towns.
I did ask some of those questions to Matt at the Recreation Committee meeting. I asked how those board members, how they're posted, if there are term limits, and agendas and minutes. So I've looked for a long time for agendas. A lot of them they're not posted, so you're not necessarily sure what they're talking about at their meetings. The minutes are very difficult to find. In fact, have you ever been on? You can't find them. And I've never seen a board member position posted.
Okay. Well, the second part of my thing was the advisory budget committee gets their budget each year, so if you contact the town administrator, she can get you that, so you have that information.
Get what?
Every year, as we go through the budget process, as part of their presentation, ORYA gives us a copy of their budget. So if you're interested in that, I can send it to you.
Absolutely.
If you want to send me an email, just let me know.
Yep, because it's public information, so.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. I'll get these.
My name is Krista Butts. I live at 17 Riverside Farm Drive in Lee.
Speak up a little bit.
Okay. I have 3 boys. They are 14, 12, and 9 currently, and they all play in sports in the ORYA system. We have not yet, well, that's not true. There's one sport we don't play in ORYA, and that's hockey, because that's the H word at our house. And it's too expensive for us to afford, so we cannot play hockey. 3 years ago, my kindergartner was playing t-ball, and he was verbally assaulted on the field by an adult. A report was filed.
I'm sorry, by who?
By an adult.
Okay.
It was not a coach. It was a player's parent. He was 6 years old at the time. And I filed a report. I went and spoke with Tom at the police department, and there were sufficient reasons to be able to file a restraining order against this gentleman for my son. However, we decided not to proceed because we didn't want to bring my son through any additional turmoil than was necessary. My son had to go through counseling. He has an IEP at school. His IEP was set back 6 months. He became nonverbal at school. Sorry. And he didn't play sports for 3 years. This is his first year back. He's doing very well, and ORYA has been supportive in him returning to sports. The person who verbally assaulted my son is allowed to be on the fields at Oyster River. His son is continuing to play sports with my son. Every year I have to make sure that I review the rosters to make sure they're not on the same team. And my husband and I have to request the game schedules ahead of time and to know which team that child is on in order to make sure that we're both in attendance when that gentleman is on the field with my son. At the Recreation Commission meeting, Mr. Glode said that he would look into getting me the information of which team this child was on, and he did not respond to me as of yet. I did do my own research and find out the information from the minors coordinator, because that's what level my son is in now. But I do believe that while I have great respect for all volunteers at ORYA, my husband currently runs the football program at ORYA. So I don't have anything bad necessarily to say about ORYA. I just feel like accountability in general is an issue across the board for sports. These are volunteers. They are parents of children in our district. If someone says something poorly about a child, you need to step up and respond to that. Because if you're not volunteering to coach these children because you're doing this for the children, then what are you doing it for? And if it's more important that you need to lawyer up because you were at a meeting in which something ill was said, instead of coming forth and holding accountable those who were in the wrong, then I don't want those people responsible for coaching any of my children. While they may be good people, they're in it for themselves and not in it for the children. And that's really what it's all about.
Thank you. Paul, Mr. Gazowski.
Paul Gazowski, 46 Lamprey Lane. I don't have a direct connection with ORYA or with this incident at this point in time. However, I coordinated soccer for ORYA and travel soccer in the 80s and 90s, and it was a big program. Two things. Accountability is vital to this program, and it sounds like there's an accountability and communications problem. Also, looking at the tack that you're taking as a board, I think it's prudent for you to proceed the way you're proceeding. There's a lot of information out there. Some of it isn't very, very clear, so it's important to have factual information. I like this program. I'm glad the three towns support the program. It does a lot of good for a lot of kids. And there are a lot of good volunteers in the program, so we should not forget about them. This particular incident is inexcusable. Furthermore, I was stunned that they were conducting a draft in Libby's Bar and Grill. This is a youth program, and there are certainly plenty of public places where they could go to conduct the business that involves youth. I can't let that one go. That just shouldn't have happened. They shouldn't be doing it that way. Furthermore, this woman over here mentioned that one of the measures Durham is taking is to increase their representation on the board. If there is an accountability problem in ORYA, and it's a big program, and chances are there are some issues now that need to be addressed. I think that's one way of going about doing it. We have representatives. They can be held more accountable to what's happening internally. If indeed the communications aren't being posted in a timely manner, they need to be posted in a timely manner. So I respect your prudent approach to this, and to let time and people who are most directly connected with this work a little bit longer to get at it. And certainly to reprimand without withdrawing funds at this point in time. There are other ways to get at this problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just add that my son's age and any pertinent information that I gave you regarding him be struck from the minutes, please?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Can I just add that if any pertinent information that would direct the information that I gave you directly to my son, if you could remove that from the minutes, please?
Certainly.
Thank you.
Certainly. Anybody?
Yes, Julie,
Yeah,
are they required to adhere to 91A?
I was
Is there a
wondering about
cross-eye?
that. I think my first answer is no, that they are
I would
not,
think, but
they are not a public board or body as determined by RSA 91A. That's not to say that they shouldn't be doing agendas or shouldn't be doing minutes or shouldn't be posting things, but I don't think that they are held to 91A.
maybe that's one of the things that we can bring to the meeting on Wednesday, is that we want their stuff to be available to the public. I don't see why they couldn't put it on their website, so.
Can I just, I guess, ask one question in terms of what you will be relaying to the people who are assembled Wednesday in terms of going forward with an independent investigation? Does the lead board have an interest in being involved in who is chosen to conduct that interview, or are you going to leave it entirely to Durham?
I think it would need to be somebody that's not associated with the organization, that's outside. I think that would be a stipulation I would want.
So it should pass through the board, is what you're saying?
Well, I think, that the term independent tells you that it's got to be somebody from outside the organization. So I think that would be my only prerequisite, if you would, is that they have to get truly an independent auditor to go in there and look at it.
I just had a wild idea, and I don't know if this is legal or not. Is it possible for us to say that we would like one of the members of our law enforcement organization be on this particular group? I don't want to volunteer as the chief, but would that be something? Then you get something from each of the three communities in terms of looking at this, and they're not involved.
I guess I don't know, I mean, I guess I'd want to know more from Durham how they're imagining this investigation. Is it just going to be one person? Is it going to be a committee? I haven't seen what their thoughts are in terms of that, so we could certainly talk about that Wednesday.
Okay.
So where we are is we're just going to hold our position right now until such time as Scott reports back from the Wednesday meeting to see if there's anything significant that we should react to there.
Okay.
I agree, then once we get that information, we can discuss it even further. I heard some whispering out there, what's this committee about?
The meeting is at the Durham Council Chambers, I believe. It's an invitation from Durham for the other two towns to come and talk about this particular issue. I don't remember what, 5:30, I think.
5:30.
5:30 in the Durham Council Chambers in their new palatial offices.
Actually, what I don't know is whether that's a public meeting, because my understanding is, well, it's not a quorum, I don't believe, of any individual town.
That's true.
So then it's not necessarily a public meeting. I have no idea.
Alright.
I guess Durham can decide that.
If it's a public meeting, is there a way to get notice of that?
I would ask Mr. Selig.
Yep.
He's the one organizing it.
Okay? That's
just-
where we are.
Mary Cobb, 29 Thurston Drive in Lee. I just want to state that I think it's a really prudent idea to have independent representation from each town. I think it's good business practice. I think it's prudent. I think that whoever that person is, honestly, they shouldn't have children in the program. I think it should truly be independent. They step back. I think it's tough in small towns. You know, your volunteers, your parents, your community members, you all know one another. That's hard. But if you have an independent representation on the board from each town, and that person only interest is to make sure that everything is handled properly, equally, fairly, not have any vested interest in terms of having their children or a child in the program. I think that ORYA would benefit, and I think all our kids would benefit.
Thank you. Okay, so I need to make a motion for that, or are we just go with that?
I'm just gonna table this.
Okay. Moving on. Wait a minute, I'm blacked out. Moving on. Oh, Randy Stevens.
Don't say you're
Bring it
blacked
back
out.
on.
It's all good in minutes.
Thank you.
Good evening. I guess I'm here to discuss the town dock.
The town dock.
Town dock.
Oh, my. The dry dock.
Was that, it's a dry dock now, yeah. It's actually up behind the, long ways from any water, it's behind the highway garage. Anyway, last fall, it looked like it was kind of rough repair, we pulled it out, said, yeah, we gotta fix that this winter, and it got buried 4 feet of snow, and all of a sudden, you know, I go up back, and, so, we were gonna put a few new boards on it, and then we found out the underpinning wasn't that good, so. Julie suggested I come in and see the board, if we can, I kinda asked her, can we, you know, leave it out? She,
And I said, I wouldn't make that decision.
yeah. So, it was permitted in 2002, and this we built shortly after the passage. It's held up pretty well, but it is getting a little rough shape. So I guess the choices is we can leave it out and see what happens, but we might lose our sort of grandfather if it's abandoned.
We already got a permit,
But
so.
it does say if you abandon it in here that.
That's because there are docks in existence prior to
Right.
1978, when they didn't have a permitting process. I mean, we can ask DES, but I'm not sure that hauling it out of the water for 1 year would make us have to go through the permit process again. I don't think so.
I don't know how much is really used, I'm not in there that much. I know it's.
You missed my comments, Randy.
Mrs. Gazowski's comment that she uses the dock.
Please put it back.
Well, that pretty much does it, doesn't it? What's it gonna take to fix it?
Mostly time. I mean, if we get rough lumber like we built that one out of, it's not that much, it's 168 board feet, it's a pretty simple structure. It costs about $84. The only problem is probably can't get dry lumber, so you'd have to let it dry. Whether we could put it in, you know, this year and pull it back out, paint it next year, or just put it in a little bit later this year. So it's not a big expense to rebuild it the way it is. The biggest thing is to paint it. It doesn't take long to build it. But what we normally do is to put some paint on it, and then we just throw a little sand on it so it's non-slippery. And it's worked out pretty well. But anyway, you can change the material.
What do you recommend, Randy?
Well, I don't know. I was looking at stuff. I don't really see anything. You know, you can use a composite lumber, but it's like 3 times as much. I'm a little concerned to be slippery, plastic lumber. You can get aluminum dock, but it might be, you know, where it's kind of, I could see where somebody might want to take that for a ride on their boat to their dock. They're kind of expensive. They're around $1,000 if you something that comparable size. What else is there?
I mean, it would be more expensive, I think, but could you make it out of something like cedar or redwood or mahogany that wouldn't require painting?
You could.
I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah,
Mahogany decks are very nice.
most of the time it's out of the water. You know, unless we get in the fall, it rains before we don't notice it. I think one of the biggest, what I was thinking about was something more lighter, but the composite lumber isn't lighter when I looked at it. That weighs about, the lumber I think weighs, what do I have? The lumber weighs, if it's green lumber, it's 500 pounds for that dock. And then you add on all the iron and everything, it's, you know, about 600 pounds. For a couple of guys to put it up and down, 2 or 3 people up that steep slope, it goes down pretty good because gravity helps us, but coming up it's not so much fun. So anyway, I guess, you know, after I researched a little, maybe the easiest thing was just fix it back up the way it was.
So you're telling me that you couldn't find the aluminum dock out there? You couldn't find one?
Oh, you find them,
Yeah.
but not that size. They'd have to be custom built.
Oh, really? Okay.
And our permit is pretty specific to 5 by 12, and in the rules here it says I want to change it a little. I have a dock and I only want to change it a little. Do I need a permit? If you have an existing legal dock, a wetlands permit is required prior to making any change to the size, location, or configuration of the docking structures. Changing construction materials such as replace wooden deck with composite decking or replacing a wood seasonal dock with aluminum seasonal dock does not require a wetlands permit or any changes to the permit.
Well, if you can't find anything, I guess.
Well, why don't we just go ahead and repair the dock?
I know somebody who lives near you who just sawed up some very nice red cedar, which would probably last longer than some stuff we've got there, so.
Yeah, you still probably want to paint the top of it or put something so you can, so you don't get the splinters. You gotta, that's the thing, I think, with
Well,
splinters.
Mrs. Gazowski did request non-splintered wood, so unless she,
Let the record be said.
Well, we'll just leave it to your good judgment, how about that?
I think we should repair it as best we can and then put it back.
Right.
Sorry.
Okay, we will do that, it just may not quite get in from one day, I'm not sure. We'll do the best we can.
Sean Tappan, 187 Stucky Stones Road. All I was going to say is that they do make extruded plastic extrusions that is specifically designed for docks. It's not the type of material that's used commonly for decks. It's specifically made for docks. I think that it's a lighter weight per unit area. And it is also specifically made to be non-slip, to be used in
Where do you find this material?
I've seen it at a boat show. So you need to go look online. That's all I can say.
Well, I guess,
I'm
I
guessing
think,
it's expensive.
For what it's worth. Yeah, I'm sure it's expensive.
well, I think we asked Mr. Stevens to repair it, so if he finds that to be a good solution, he can use that instead.
I agree.
So I'd like to enter a motion. Move to authorize the highway supervisor to repair the existing dock
Second.
at your discretion as to what materials to use.
37.
Okay?
Vote.
Yes.
We'll give a motion
All in
on the
favor?
table, Mr. Chair.
Aye.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
he needs more training, John, more training.
Huh? Do what?
Needs more training.
Oh, for heaven's
Oh,
sake. Here, take your chocolate back. Will you pass that back down?
Really?
You gotta pay, you gotta pay way too heavy a price for that. Way too heavy a price.
He's still in training.
So we're gonna move on to the next item, which is a select board organization establishment of goals and objectives. Right now, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 goals and objectives listed.
Yeah, one of the objectives I put on the top was Little River Park grand opening. I'm glad Larry's here, in the sense that we'd like to pick a time. Maybe you can make a suggestion where we can have a formal announcement about Little River Park. Because a lot of things, pavilion's been completed, you've got a lot of stuff that's done out there, the fields look really good. And I know you got a great selection of bands coming in, stuff coming. I saw that, I'm very pleased to see that. Maybe you can suggest a time from the commission where we could have a formal opening.
How about the June 25th? There's something happening down there.
Movie night?
No, there's something happening beforehand. They're doing ice cream and something.
Oh, that would,
I thought that was at the movie night.
The night
That's
of the movie.
movie.
Yeah.
It's movie night.
that's our first movie night. And that's
That might be
coordinated,
good.
Karen Rossi. We're coordinating that with Karen Rossi. Yeah, we could probably do something along those lines. Let me just see if I can get my schedule here. I wasn't prepared to talk about that.
That's why I said.
Fishing derby, we can talk about that, coming up. Let's see here. No, put a schedule. Oh, here we go. 23rd, our first family movie night.
Mhm.
We could do something there.
I'd like to.
What would you like to do?
I'd like a ribbon cutting ceremony that was stretched across the pavilion or something.
We already did that.
That's one way to get you
We did
guys
that
out to the
already?
park.
Yeah,
Pavilion.
we did a ribbon cutting at the pavilion.
Yeah, we did.
What we did.
Remember,
Yeah.
big scissors?
Big
Oh, the
scissors.
big scissors, that's right.
Yeah,
I'd like to do something else.
okay.
Think on something. I'm gonna leave it up to the Recreation Commission.
Thanks, John. All right. You want me to get back to you on that?
Yeah, well, could you get back to us, and then we'll be able to announce it?
John, I'll get back to you on that.
Thank you very much.
Anything else while I'm here?
I will see. Why don't you take a seat?
I can't leave yet.
Oh, what are the movies this year? What's the
We're still
children's-
working on that. The first movie is gonna be geared towards kids.
Right, and then you're gonna have an adult movie, right?
Well, careful how
Let's
you.
keep it on
I know,
track.
I'm doing that purposely, because that's what you called it the first time, adult movie.
Yeah, well, we,
Yeah, I know you changed.
terminology.
Yes, I know.
Terminology.
Okay, yeah.
Thanks.
The second one was continuing staff training. I think we've all
Yep.
agreed with that, right? Complete the swap shop, that's coming along nicely. The only pending issue that's popping up is the Energy Committee feels strongly about the fact that the swap shop should be insulated. Right now, there is no plan to insulate the swap shop. I went by to see Toby, he wasn't in, I talked to Chip, and asked him if he could get a price for what batting, just the pink insulation, what it would cost.
You mean the new part that they're building, right?
Yes,
Because the other part's insulated.
right, no, the new part, there's no plans for insulation. According to the
But the-
Energy Committee chairperson, she was told that there wasn't any funds to do that, so I asked them to get a price, and the Energy Committee might have enough funds in order to cover the price of the insulation.
But
Just,
they're not planning on heating that new section, they're heating the little section.
but they're going to, I think, with the two adjoining, with the door open or whatever, they kind of take some of the heat. They just feel as though it doesn't make sense to build a building without any insulation on it. There's no plans for any insulation at all, walls. So we'll get a price and see what the Energy Committee thinks about that.
Okay, well, they're not planning on heating that particular thing, so,
Right.
because the garage door is gonna be open, that's how you get access, so how would heat stay in there anyways, even if you insulated it?
Well,
I'm missing something then. Because when the swap shop is open, the attendants are gonna be in the little area that's gonna be insulated and heated. The garage door is gonna be open, people going to do stuff, so how are you gonna
I
heat the
don't
heat?
know that the garage door is planned
That's how
on
they
being
vote.
open like that.
Oh, okay.
Okay, well, let me see what we find out,
Okay.
and we'll go from
Perfectly
there.
fine.
Just
Yeah, sounds good.
Complete the Energy Committee projects. I know that they're working on the LED
Working
RFP.
on the LED RFP.
The
Yep.
TA is quite involved with that. The insulation, I think there's still issues on the transfer station insulation project. And I know that they're working on the solar array, and also the TA is involved in that project relative to RFPs.
Yeah, although I had thought that it was the board's instructions to focus first on the LED.
It is.
And then turn our attention to the solar array.
It is, and
Obviously, with the solar array, there's still a whole lot of questions as to where we're gonna put it.
I asked the Energy Committee, I met with them last week, and asked them to focus on the LED project, because it looks like that's something that could get done. It's relatively straightforward, we just gotta get the RFP. And the last item, Town Center Facilities Project. I think we're well underway with that.
Well, we're gonna talk about the RFP later on for the design services, so, yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else? Any other revisions we'd like to do to the goals and objectives? Additions?
I think you got some big items there that you need to focus on.
There's
so-
more than enough to do, I think.
Oh, well, I think so.
Okay, good. We'll move on to the next item. Julie Glover, Town Administrator.
The first item that I'd like to talk to you about is the Municipal Resources, Inc. assessing contract. As you may recall, last year we issued an RFP. It was sent directly to 12 firms. We got 3 responses back. MRI was the low bidder, and so they've been doing the work since last July. Well, actually, they've been doing the work for a while. And so I'm looking to see whether the board would be interested in granting them, I guess it would be a contract extension. The prices were included in your agenda packet. You know, rather than try to go out for an RFP again. I mean, we're satisfied with MRI. I'm not aware of any issues with MRI. We don't, you know, we don't have complaints. We don't have people come to the board saying we're unhappy with them. So I'd like to ask the board if we could extend the contract. I guess it's for 3 years or for 2 years. So 19, 20, and 21.
3 years.
3 years. Right, because we're in 18. Okay.
And we get some kind of discount.
And we get a discount, right. So in the first year, under that scenario, the price would remain the same in the first year, and then the subsequent years would be less each year than if we didn't do this. So
I'm okay with that as long as when that contract is done, that we do another RFP and test the waters to see what pricing is. So I'm okay with it.
All right. Okay?
Yes.
Okay, therefore, move to appropriate the MRI assessing contract extension for 3 years as presented. All in favor?
You've been seconding it.
Second.
Sorry, yes. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Nice job.
He's your buddy tonight, so.
I got a cheat sheet here, man. I'm trying to do my best, all right?
He's right on tonight.
The next item that I just wanted to bring to the board's attention is the legal budget. For a variety of reasons, what we call the general legal budget has gone over. 2 things, you know, the board approved taking a few actions, tax deeding or tax lien issues to small claims court, so that was a legal expense. And then we've actually, over this past year, had about $8,200 worth of legal expenses relative to the police department, that some issues came up, nothing nefarious. I don't want anybody to think that there is, just issues arise. And quite frankly, I had not seen that in my previous time here, so it wasn't really on my radar, the budget for something like that. Because we had upped the planning and zoning legal budget because of all of the various ongoing issues, we actually haven't spent all of that money yet. So, and I do know that obviously we're gonna have some more expenses coming out of legal for planning and zoning, but I guess my thought right now is that between the 2 accounts, hopefully we will balance out, and then we won't need to look anywhere else for money. But I did just want to bring that to the board's attention. Any questions?
Can you just, like, when you have the last manifest for May, can you just give us an update in terms of what that is? Because as we get closer,
Right.
I would appreciate that if you could.
Absolutely. Next item is the highway supervisor job description. Mr. Stevens and I have been working on this together, and so the draft that the board has now is based on the work that we did together. Obviously, you'll note that this remains a highway supervisor job description. Again, I don't know whether the board wants to consider or talk about whether you want to reconfigure the responsibilities and add other responsibilities. But as it exists right now, this is the draft of the highway supervisor job description.
Can I ask one question? Page, what page is this? Page 4? Oh, next to the last page, how about that?
Okay.
The bulleted list, the last item in the bulleted list, it says ability to obtain a DES solid waste operator certification and blah, 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 blah.
Right.
Do we have, because I assume that position you were required to have that, or we want them to have that? So it says ability to obtain, doesn't mean they have to have it? I know someplace else in here we talk about it. But I think we should say something besides ability to obtain.
Okay.
Obtain and hold or something.
We can clarify that. I think what that means is you don't necessarily have to have that certification when you're hired.
I understand that.
Oh, okay, but then you need to go get it.
Yeah, so maybe there's something, within a year they have to
Okay.
obtain, something like that.
Sure.
I'm not sure what the requirements are for those. I don't know if that's it
I think if
takes a
we
year to get them.
said within a year, that sounds doable.
Okay. I just want
Mhm.
somebody to come in and say, well, I have the ability to obtain those, I'm not gonna do them, but I have the
Right,
ability
right.
to obtain them.
Yep.
I just think we should be clear.
I will consult with Mr.
Yes.
Stevens and get his thoughts on what a reasonable time frame would be.
Yep.
Okay.
And the same thing down, I think it's minimum qualifications on the last page.
Mm-hmm.
It says ability to possession of, and I'm not sure, if there's any requirements for those, like possession of, ability to obtain a CDLA. What if they don't have one? Can we say ability to obtain within a certain period of time?
Sure.
Yep.
Sure. I think they just have to, they have to take the test and they have to do a drug test and so on and
Yeah.
so forth.
So I have the ability to obtain one, but
No,
if
you're
I
right.
want to. And that's part of the job in terms of the CDL. He's not going to be driving around without, or she. So,
And on the ability and familiarity with Microsoft Word and Excel, those are the only two programs we use here?
I don't think,
Yeah, it just seems too specific.
I don't think they use any other programs.
but he has to use like Outlook for email and stuff like that, or she.
Well, that's true.
Well,
So can we just broaden it a little
Yeah,
bit,
yeah.
give it more that would include like
How about
Microsoft Office or something?
Office Suite, how about that?
Office
Suite.
Something like that.
Yep.
I won't hold it, there's a lot of stuff in the suite, but at least,
Cover your bases.
yes,
Yep.
exactly, because that's a little bit limiting at this point.
Okay. The only other question I had was whether the board, as it's currently written, and I did not change this, it does not require the individual to have a high school diploma.
Well, I thought it did.
No, it kind of just says the knowledge that one might have if one
Oh.
had graduated from high school.
Well, I think it
Can we
probably should.
use language in terms of a high school diploma or GED or
Sure.
equivalent or something like that?
Yeah.
That's usually what's put in there.
Yep. Okay.
How do you measure the ability to discipline employees per town personal policy?
I guess if you have an employee and then if you hire somebody and then word gets back to you that the employees are running amok because there is no discipline in the department, I suppose you might want to bring the person in and.
I understand that piece, I understand that piece, but, if you're looking to hire somebody, ask the question, you don't know about the ability till
Right.
something happens,
Right.
then you know you have the
Right,
ability.
but then, let's suppose you wanted to get rid of the person because of that. You then say, well, we told you that this was a requirement of the job.
Sure, okay.
That's where that's helpful.
Thank you.
Employees of the highway department might run amok.
You never can tell. Okay.
So the next question I have, I will make these, I'll talk to Mr. Stevens and put these changes in. Do we want to go ahead and advertise it? I mean, the clock is ticking.
I think we need to.
Yeah, I think we need to, since we have a drop deadline, don't we?
We did.
Absolutely.
Yes, let's make it so.
And then I'll have some discretion in terms of where we advertise it. I mean, quite frankly, these days, like Indeed is where people advertise jobs.
Ask Randy, but there's a thing that goes out to all the highway people.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
Public Works Net or something like that.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, well, they have on, there's
Yep.
a magazine or something also, some kind of flyer that goes out
Yep.
monthly or quarterly or something.
NHMA
I can't recognize you.
Chief?
has a classified board.
Yeah, NHMA and Primex.
Yep. Yep.
We advertise that.
Do we have a hiring board who's gonna review these things? You got a recommendation?
To the board. I mean, you might want to have one board member.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know whether you want to have any or other department heads or any members of the public.
Well, I think we should put a board together. I think it makes
Oh, I
sense.
agree.
I mean, I would make it an interview board,
Interview board, yeah.
Yeah.
right?
But the board of selectmen makes the final decision.
You don't have to decide the composition of that right now, I mean, we've got a little time. I would certainly want this to be out there
Mhm.
for 3 or 4 weeks.
Well, we want Randy on it, so,
Yeah,
Mhm.
okay.
okay.
All right, sounds good, but yeah, I would say some kind of board interviews.
So as the resumes come in, can you forward them to us so we can take a look?
Mhm.
Because I don't know if we want to wait until 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, no,
Start
No, no, no.
as they come pouring in,
Oh, yeah, they'll come pouring in.
I'll send them to you.
Yep. The person who's working at McDonald's thinks that they can be the highway arts, but we'll see. Nothing against McDonald's, mind you.
Oh, no.
Could be from Wendy's.
Absolutely. We're open.
All right,
Okay, we're on D.
no?
No?
Oh, yes, sorry, my bad, sorry. Town Center RFP. I was asked to draft an RFP and then send it to the TCDC, which I did, and then the TCDC worked on it. It came back to me, I just made a couple of comments in the margins, and so this is what's in front of you tonight.
I think the biggest questions, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but the biggest questions that you had in terms of what's the paradigm in terms of how this is going to work. And
Right,
I think,
it struck me that the select board didn't seem to have any oversight at all in
Well,
the process.
they're in charge of the TCVC.
Mhm.
So I think, at least I'll put, my thought process was to use the same paradigm that we used when we did the thing with the facilities committee and AG Architects. We hired the architectural firm, but then the architect worked with, or the firm worked with the facilities committee to get whatever work needs to be done. And that's what I was envisioning this, the same thing. There's nothing that stops the board from saying, hey, I don't like that, let's not do that kind of thing. But I think the day-to-day stuff, there needs to be a group that's interested in doing that on a regular basis, and I think that's the TCVC. But that's just my opinion. We can do it wherever way we want to do it, but that was just my thought process, so. And I think there's one, I don't remember where it is, in terms of updates, and they can come to all three of the particular, all three of the particular groups. So the TCVC and the board,
That's on page 2.
page 2, where is it? Yeah.
The town administrator put in the
Yeah.
question about that.
Again, entirely up to the board, it just as I read through it, and I read through it a number of times to make sure that I didn't miss it, one would get the sense from reading this document that all of the decisions will be that of the TCVC, and that there wasn't a final presentation to the select board, or anything along the lines of the select board is the final arbiter, other than the taxpayers and the voters, as to what's gonna go on.
Well, I would simply like a chance when, after the TCVC looks at it and everybody agrees, just a chance to look at the final version before it goes out.
Well, personally, myself, I want us involved more than just in the final version. I think on an ongoing basis.
Right,
So-
but it doesn't feel to me that that's in here.
It needs to be
So-
stated.
Okay.
I feel it should say something like the TCVC and the representative company would make, like every 2 months, a small report to the board, even if it's just a stand 15-minute lecture, and then the final decision be made by the board of selectmen. And then the authority has to be based right in there somewhere.
Yeah, either that or we could have a joint meeting, just read through it, just make sure everybody agrees with it.
But I think I'd like to have like meetings where they do a small presentation, then it gets into the public comment, gets into the minutes. So every once in a while, there'll be a presentation to the full board, and then other members of the community will be here. That way they can see where everybody's going, so it's like going to the wedding. If you want to stop the wedding, you don't wait till the minute when they say, is there anybody who want to hold your feet?
Well,
You can stop it ahead of time.
But the TCVC's been meeting for this long now, right?
Yeah.
So now they're ready to release the RFP as soon as they get the verbiage right.
Yeah, but there's 2 public forums, so we can hold that during a board meeting if we wanted to do that. But yeah, at least my intention is not to take us out of the loop.
No.
But I want I would want us to be involved in the thing, but the
Right.
day-to-day stuff needs to be the TCVC in terms of
I
dealing
agree
with
with
this
that.
particular firm.
Okay, so where does it say in here, the final decision be made by the Board of Selectmen?
It doesn't.
But it should.
Okay, go, can Mr. Chair, can you speak?
I was gonna hit that,
Did it with the gavel.
Watch it, MTA.
It's a good idea.
Hey, this police chief is here, and this could be assault.
John Tappan, I'm a member of the TCVC, and we received the version that the town administrator had commented on Friday evening. And there were 3 places in the document where she thought there should be additional information or oversight from the board. The first one was on the reports that come from the firm. And I think it is important that those reports, I think they should be in electronic form.
Yes.
It should just be a mailing list. They go to all the TCV members, they go to the select board members, and they go to the town administrator. Because I think all those 10 individuals should get those every time they go out.
Yep.
The comment about the final approval, that's that's way down. And I agree also, as it's written right now, it says that it's just approved by the TCVC, but the final approval most certainly should be, I think, both TCVC and board, because it really is the board. I'm trying to find the page.
The other thing I would say in terms of, on page 3, under annex, it says, like the town hall, the annex has no private offices, but it does have private offices, so we need to change that. And also in terms of potential uses, it says, and/or storage. But afterwards, I think Julie, you said in terms of one of the options we have is removing it, so that should be included as well. So.
Yes, I do have also a rewrite of that, and that does list all of the possibilities for the annex except for demolishing it. And since we have somebody that is interested in buying it, I don't think we need to say that we might demolish it.
The other thing under section G, the 4th bullet, I was tasked to talk with the Stratford Regional Planning people, and those 4 things, green building, smart growth, LID design, and alternative energy. 2 of those, I believe, I don't have that with me, but 2 of those, the gentleman said, those are really for large, tracts of land, large developments. He doesn't think, in his opinion, that those are really applicable to what we're trying to do.
Smart growth?
Maybe that, I just remember he said there's 2 of them. I gave him the list. He said those are really for larger, he's gonna send me some more information so I can share it with the TCVC. But he says, for what you're trying to do, those are not really applicable. So,
I think,
but that's his opinion.
Okay, I think the low impact development is.
Okay. Well, maybe it's the green building and then smart, I don't know.
Do you all have a TCVC meeting coming up?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm reporting back. I don't have that with me right now. I wrote down notes when I was speaking with
No,
him.
no,
so.
but I'm just,
We meet every 2
you're gonna
weeks.
be going through that
Yep.
at the meeting, right?
So it sounds like the next meeting, the TCVC's got to go through this and rework it a bit and put the select board in it,
Yes.
and then bring it back?
Yes,
Okay,
sounds like a plan.
all right.
The other, there were other changes one change that we voted on that did not get in here. I think it's right on the first page. It says that we have the opportunity to buy approximately 5 acres.
Oh, no.
That had gotten changed to 5.46, and we voted that it should just be changed back to just approximately 5. Because all we know is that it's kind of approximately 5. It hasn't been surveyed yet.
Yeah, fair
We're
enough.
working on that.
That sounds good.
D?
Yeah, we got a request request from a group that wants to use the Little River Park Pavilion on, I think it's May 10th, it's this week, right? Essentially all day. And one of the things they asked about, is electricity available? Somehow they use computers and music and,
Just the computer with music on the computer.
yeah.
No speakers.
And so then that raised the question for me about the electrical use. Two things. One, about the electrical use at Little River Park. I think when we drafted our facilities rules, we didn't have electricity at Little River Park. And so we never kind of circled back and had a conversation. What do we want to do if someone wants to use the electricity? And then the second thing I discovered from Mr. Stevens was that all the outlets were live, and you saw my email.
Yeah.
That really, and I don't get even freaked out by things, but that worried me. So anyway, we shut it down. We can shut it down in the shed. So I don't know whether the board wants to talk about, gee, if some group wants to use the electricity, and assuming that the board also agrees it's prudent to leave the electricity turned off unless we need to use it, we would then have to have an employee go out there, turn it on, make sure it's turned off when the group is finished. And I'm not talking about the rec commission, or I'm talking about these outside groups that use our pavilion. Do we want to then entertain charging for that? Because now we're taking up personnel time. Or do we want to tell people, sorry, you can't use the electricity? I mean, I'm just wondering what the board wants to do, because we just haven't been faced with this before.
Personally, I'm not enthusiastic about using electricity out there. I mean, safety purposes with the lights that come on and everything else, and then when the town has activities through the recreation
Right.
committee or the board of selectmen, I think it's obviously we can turn the electricity on, but we won't be able to monitor the use of electricity
Right.
whatsoever at that point.
Correct.
And I could see people just kind of parking down there and using it continuously.
Don't we get a fee for the use of the park, or the use of the pavilion? Do
No.
we charge a fee?
No,
I
not
mean, we
for
should
the
just start
pavilion.
charging a fee and.
They only got to monitor it.
Yeah, I don't know that I mean, my personal opinion, I don't know that I'd go so far as charging a fee to use the pavilion. And again, if the board decides, you want to allow people to use the electricity, that I think we should charge a fee for. Because obviously we get an electric bill. How we're ever going to monitor that, we can't.
Well, the other aspect, I want to reduce liability.
Well, my point was to charge a fee and then turn on the electricity, so you're not worried about monitoring the electrical usage.
Can we break this up?
Sure.
Are we all in agreement that we don't leave the power on down there?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so
Thank you.
there's one.
Thank you.
Okay, in terms of if we do allow them to use power out there, do we want to allow that to happen? So that's our next question. Do we want to allow people who are there, not counting the
Right.
people that are in town?
Right.
Because, we'd have a conniption fit if we said, we're having the fair and you can't use any power. Jim Banks would yell at us first, but.
Or anything that was town sanctioned at this point, or recreation, that
So
allowed
do
to
we
use the power.
want to let other organizations use power down there? And if so, do we charge for it?
Again, the issue that I see is now we have to get an employee to go down there and turn it on and then turn it off. And I don't know, suppose a group is there until 7, 8 o'clock at night. I mean, I don't.
Yeah.
And it's
Well, we
also-
can always tell them, I'm sorry, there's no power available, you can bring a generator. I mean, that's the only option.
Air pollution.
Well, a small Honda generator, that's not enough to even pollute the pavilion.
And we'll
I
plan.
really like when they push the button in the car and you hear these beepers all around. I even hate that much. It's noise pollution, so I don't want any pollution.
Larry?
I
I'm
think
really
Randy
enrolled
goes
tonight.
down there and opens the gate and closes it every morning and night.
I'd have to go back in my notes, but I recall that when we set up the pavilion, didn't we have some sort of fee structure for people that didn't live in Lee?
No, the board at the time decided not to charge for use of the pavilion.
Okay. Because I know we discussed it, but.
Yeah, it was discussed,
Okay.
but it didn't
I think part of it, I mean, to be very honest, it was just, again, it was a kind of maybe a manpower, now we gotta manage taking money in, and I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying we can't do it, but
Well, the only power that's at the pavilion is one outlet down in the corner, as I recall. There are other power stations, but the one that would be used in the pavilion is just a regular outlet.
Miss Randy told me there's 12 outlets at Little River Park.
Yeah, but I think at the pavilion, there's just the one set of outlets.
Can you turn on one and not
I
the other?
believe so, yeah, there's circuit breakers.
And then
in
which
there.
one is the 50 amp?
Oh, I don't don't know, but,
That was the scary one.
Isn't that the one in the pavilion? Because that's what he
That's
plugs
what I
everything into.
thought, that's what I thought.
yeah, because we'll be using it every Thursday night for the bands, starting June 7th.
Yeah, but again, that's a,
So, no, I understand that, but
yeah.
I'm saying,
yeah,
you don't have to leave them all on. I think you could,
I
if
don't-
you wanted to, you
yeah.
could just isolate it to that one
For me, it's
outlet.
somebody has to go down there and turn it on and turn it back off.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
I understand, but I thought that we had some sort of fee schedule for outsiders using it, but.
The other thing I concern myself is liability. I mean, people plug in their computer, there's a surge, it blows it up, are we liable? Or do we have language that we're not liable? So I think it was just stepping on some hot coals here by allowing that to occur. So my answer is no. Standing on a line of fire.
Well, personally, I don't have a problem with providing users, if it's for a function where they require electricity, access to an outlet or whatever, if there's a way that, you know, if the pavilion outlet, I don't know what the circuitry looks like, I don't know if there's a bunch of circuit breakers and you can turn off.
Yeah, you can.
If you can.
Yeah.
So you could isolate it down to one or two 110 outlets. I don't personally have any issue with that at all.
So somebody goes down there with a double burner, then plug it in, those burners that you.
The breaker breaks, it goes, poof, and it goes.
I'm talking about burns and liability.
Well,
And it's more of that end I'm worried about. It's not the usage per se, but if something goes wrong, the liability that could occur. You know, everybody puts batteries on their tongues for kicks. I mean, they may put their fingers in the plug socket, you know.
How long have you put those out with them now? A year?
Don't people have to fill out a form for a request to use the pavilion?
Yep.
So couldn't that be part of it if they require
It
electricity?
could, absolutely, whatever whatever the board decides they want to do, we just have to learn how to manage it. And again, I guess I agree with the liability issue, but I also have the issue with who are we going to assign to be the flipper and flipper offer of the switch,
It's a new title.
That's my issue.
right?
I'm with Mr. Brown, that I don't see any reason why we can't do it, but my thing is, who are we gonna have to do it?
Right.
That's the thing for me. If Randy's down there every day opening and closing the gate, I don't think he does that for every single event, because they might not need to go in there, but that's my thing. And how many of these do we get?
This is the first request for electricity, although maybe they've been plugging stuff in and we just didn't know about it, but this is the first specific request we've had. I mean, they're typically,
I'll do it,
you know, birthday parties and,
Do you have the key?
I'll do it. I assume somebody would give me the key if I say I'll do
I don't
it.
know if you're authorized.
No, that takes
If
training.
I'm not
It's not a
authorized,
contract.
then give me a list of the
and I don't
authorized
mean to
personnel.
be, I don't
and
mean
we'll-
to be difficult, but
Uh-oh.
let me just,
Really?
I
Here comes the
don't,
boom.
I don't mean to be difficult, but I feel,
But you're going to be
Oh,
well, I just want to point
Oh, she
out,
doesn't mean to do it.
then we need a backup if you're out of town.
Yes.
You know, now who's the flipper and the, I'm
I
just,
don't want to be the flipper
Well, I
off.
don't know, but if it only happens once every 5 years, I don't see that as, let's just play the odds.
I don't know.
Geez, John, I was gonna volunteer you to back him up, but.
I'll back you up then, I'll back
Wait a
you
minute,
up.
you're the primary.
Okay, then he'll back me up.
Well, Denise doesn't
What
do
if it's a
anything.
morning thing?
The chief, the chief.
So most of the time, it's a sunrise yoga.
Wait a minute, we might have
Is
another.
there a possibility of putting it on a timer?
Well, but then it's always on.
No,
Well,
no.
no, the person would just, you have to go down one time, turn it on, and say, okay, it shuts off at 7
Look at the
o'clock.
time, it goes on at 8 o'clock and goes off at 5 or something like that.
Chief, you just gave me a brilliant idea.
Even more so.
Coin-operated electricity. You gotta put a quarter in for every 10 minutes. Look at the money that we can make in this
They don't
deal.
have
Do those
quarter.
exist?
Well, it's
Sure.
the vibrating beds in the hotels.
Right,
Oh,
it would
Jesus.
probably be an app.
Let's get back to
So token,
the fact that we need
We can
somebody,
sell tokens, yes.
like a car wash.
He's all red.
I'm sorry,
You do a car wash and give them a token for electricity.
a car wash,
Yeah, you can run
a
it.
machine, just like a car wash.
Yeah.
Just you put in 4 quarters, you get an hour's worth of electricity.
There you go.
Yeah, then our officers are gonna be down there, because people are gonna break into it and get the change out.
Crowbars, open those things open, right?
It'll cost us more money.
We do still
We're out of control.
work a little.
We're out of control.
Mr. Chairman,
Are
control
we
of your
or are
board,
we
please.
not?
She had a comment.
No, I still, Dr. LaCourse raises legitimate concerns about. what-
They could sue us if they trip over the edge of the pavilion when they go in there to, so, you know,
Which is
you
not-
can't run anything worried about what liability can do to you anymore.
Which is starting your precedents.
What precedent? You have electricity at the facility, you've put the outlets in, and now you're not gonna turn them on?
But the facility is for town usage.
It's for everybody's usage in town.
It's a public park, is
It's
it
a
not?
public,
Controlled by the
And we're
Board of
giving
Selectmen.
them, and we're, exactly, here we
I
are.
don't know whether other public parks have electricity.
Yeah.
I suggest that we ought to have a procedure for allowing people to access electricity at the park.
Okay.
Okay.
Um,
You hear my argument, I'll wait for procedure.
I guess, do we want to allow the people that are using it on Thursday? Or do we just say, hey, we're sorry,
Can you tell me what these people are, what they want to do?
Sure. Whatever the name, I don't remember what the name of the group is.
I don't remember the name. They're a group of people that are gonna be there from morning till late in the afternoon. And all they wanna do, I don't know why they don't have just a laptop, they don't have to plug in, but for some reason they need to plug in a computer to, show, I think they're gonna bring a projector maybe, and they're gonna show,
It's some
Yeah.
kind of church service. I
Yeah.
just don't recall the name of the
church.
church.
So they're gonna show slides or something, or I don't know what they're gonna show, and then they're not gonna have any speakers, it's not gonna be like, blaring.
And the number of people attending?
I don't know, we don't typically ask.
Well, you said a church
Did-
service.
Well, they put it on the application, I don't recall.
Can we just give them a one-off and we'll just do it this one time?
Yeah.
Then just we'll deal with it when it comes up again.
Yep.
We've spent way too much time.
Yeah, this is the most fun I've had in a while.
So, I'm sorry,
So, okay for this Thursday.
what did we say, what did you
I was
suggest?
suggesting that we just do this one and,
And then we're gonna
yeah,
Okay, then we're gonna come up with
come up with
something
some
or
kind of
make a
procedure.
decision.
Yep.
That would be a treat.
because I think you have some board members who have
Reservations.
concerns.
Mhm.
So if you can volunteer to turn it on and off, Mr.
Okay.
Brown, you've satisfied my
I'll be
concern.
happy to turn the electricity on and off for them. When is it?
Well, then we'd have to come up with a title for that particular.
Flipper dipper?
Why don't you do that, and you can run it
The
through the
title?
lawyers? Yeah, run it through the lawyers.
No.
And also the,
It's gonna cost us money.
Well, I'll have Randy get in touch with you and he can show you how to do it for this Thursday.
fine, do I get benefits also?
Benefits.
Fine,
Yeah,
that's just.
there's your benefit right there.
There you go.
Okay, fair enough, but I will be happy to turn the electricity on and off. And
Thank you. And then just the last item, you may have seen it in the manifest, the deposit down payment to do the survey for the church property. Just want to make sure you saw it in the manifest, you're approving it, and so that I can let everybody, including the church, know.
I saw it, I don't know if they saw it,
moving
but
forward.
Yeah, I saw it.
Okay.
$3,000 for that.
Yeah.
Well, that's the deposit.
Deposit, yes.
The down payment, or whatever he's,
Mhm.
okay.
Can you tell us in terms of when he can do that?
I thought that he had indicated he could have it done in, I don't know, 3 weeks,
Okay.
which would be fantastic if he could get it done that fast.
The other thing, I had a comment, one of the concerns that TCPC had was in terms of the contours for the toggle, 1 or 2 feet. I spoke with Karen, and Karen said we should be comfortable with 2 feet.
Mhm.
That's one of the things I'll get back to the TCPC about, but she was comfortable with 2 feet contours. But if you can pass that on to him, I don't remember seeing the gradations, but
Okay.
2 feet is usually what's done anyways.
Okay, yep, I will let him know.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
That is it.
Okay. Move on to number 8, consent agenda.
Motion to accept?
Make a motion to accept consent agenda.
Second.
Anything, comment, anything? No?
Discussion?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you.
May I make a comment? Just,
Absolutely.
Ann Tappan, Conservation Commission. I just came from the Conservation Commission meeting, and one of the topics was regarding the intent to cut, and just wanted you to be aware of the location of the cut. It has a long common border with the town forest, and at the commission meeting, we talked about either the commission or the town administrator sending a letter to the owner and the logging company about that, and we wondered whether or not we should have the common border marked so that there would be no encroachment. I only have one copy of this map that Mr. Hum handed out, but just so you see, maybe I just walk up there and show it to you. This green is all the town forest.
Mhm.
This is the parcel for the cut,
Mhm.
and it's 40 out of the 46 acres. I mean, we have not questioning the cut.
Mhm.
It's just that
The
this is
border.
a common border, and some companies are more careful about that sort of
So
thing.
you want it
than others.
flagged, is that what you want?
So the question is, anyway, the Conservation Commission was thinking about having either they or the town administrator send a letter saying, just so you know, this is the town forest, and we were
So we would
talking
just-
internally whether or not to actually mark that more clearly so that there would not be encroachment into the town forest.
Okay.
Anyway, just wanted you to be aware of,
Mhm.
it had that very long common border. Do you want to do that? Sure.
When was the last time it was surveyed and flagged?
Um,
Is there any markings out there now?
So Mr. Holmes said that he had looked through the file. We don't have the specific dates, but there's been 3 or 4 different survey companies over the years that have done some work on some portion of the boundaries. So we need to get together, and somebody needs to, look at all those pieces and see. It doesn't mean that each company did the whole border.
We would
There was a-
just squirt some orange paint on,
Yeah, the trees,
on the
the trees
trees
could just be
that,
marked, blazed in some way like that, but,
would the Conservation Commission want to do that?
well, no, we can't do that, you have to have a survey, a
Well,
surveyor.
no, that I
do
understand, yeah, okay.
But there was conversation about what, if anything, should be done about that, but at least the owner and the logger need to be aware that that does have a long common boundary, and
Yeah, don't overtake it.
it is important to, not have encroachment, and most loggers are careful and mindful of where they are, but anyway, that just
Just a
came up at the
reminder,
meeting,
okay.
just wanted you to know.
Understand.
Thank you.
So I could email a copy of this to Mr. Hum?
Mhm.
He
Oh, he already
handed
he
those
has it?
out.
I mean,
So
the.
he's gonna contact you about doing a letter.
Okay, so I'm doing the letter?
No.
The
He's gonna
conservation-
do a draft and then talk to you. Should it come from the commission or should it
I
come
believe it
from?
would come from the commission.
It would come from the
Yeah.
commission.
Okay. Okay.
Approval.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are we okay, TA?
Yeah, we're good.
All right.
Consent agenda's been moved and seconded and voted, right?
We haven't signed anything yet.
No.
Bottom of the page.
So I make a motion to enter into non-public session.
No.
Sign
No.
it.
Sign.
We gotta sign all this first. We
What
just
am I
sign
signing?
everything.
We just
Everything.
voted the consent, so you gotta sign all that stuff.
Okay.
We got them rattled at that last conversation.
He was probably looking forward to flipping the switch.
Indeed, I am. Where do I sign this? Municipal assessing
The
official?
select board is the municipal assessing official.
Okay.
I'm gonna start with stickers here. Is this something special?
That was, she's trying to fake you out.
She's trying to fake me out again?
Yeah,
Jeez.
yeah, it didn't work, no.
I'm gonna fake me out again. Trying to fake me out. Okay.
How come I made it to the top?
I don't know why.
Ooh, I've been promoted.
Assessing documents.
Yeah. It's on the bottom. What's this going on?
What is the problem?
You've been demoted.
I've been demoted. You've been risen.
What's the problem?
To change the name, orders.
I think the board's a little slap happy tonight. I think that's good. Let's be spring in the air or pollen, one or the other.
Pollen? Or is it the moon?
It's the moon.
Yeah.
It's the effect the volcano is having on
Oh,
us.
isn't that something?
Those poor people.
You know, sulfur dioxide gas and all that stuff, and it burns you.
This, you must have read this stuff, and the guy said something about how long is he going to interrupt, and the response was, well, when Kaylee decides.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I heard that.
All right.
I thought that was good. When Pele decides the eruption will stop, it will stop.
That's going back.
Tempted to keep it all together, huh?
Are you telling me what to do?
Yes, don't give him more papers than he's going to lose.
See?
Nothing. Go back to your signing.
Thank you. Think about that.
I said, this only requires your signature.
Okay.
3 times.
3 times.
That is a detailed one.
One of these, we get a whole bunch of money.
Yeah.
Which one it was?
They have to do that. I thought Denise fills it.
Oh, this one? Printing our names?
What's that?
Oh, she'll do it for you. She'll do it for Carrie because he doesn't know what to do.
Did he sign it?
No, yes, he did.
Okay, so, okay, there you go. Can you get that back to Denise? roll. We gotta roll.
Need a rubber stamp.
God, these lines for writing your name on there so small. You're like a John Hancock person.
Huh? What?
The lines are so small to sign your name, it's like, oh my God. I definitely don't want to go into Scott's space of yours, but it's hard to control.
Who's putting the arrows on? That's what I want to know.
Whoever put it before was falling off.
Huh?
The thing is, you don't have to stay with just one line. You can take up two. There's more than enough there.
I know. That's true too. I could really go crazy with those two.
It should match
I
up.
mean, that-
Whoa. This had something else with it. I think it goes with this.
Helen had to have gone through everything in that agenda packet to pull that out. He gets points for looking at the agenda packet.
That it?
Yep.
Okay. Make a motion to enter into non-public session per NHRSA 91-A:3, 2, A, I, C, C. Roll call vote required.
Second.
Scott?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Carrie? Yes.
Motion carries.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Make a motion to seal the minutes under subcategory C.
Oh, I'm sure I got that here somewhere. seal the minutes?
No, it's on the agenda.
It's on the agenda?
Number 10.
Yeah,
Number 10.
right here.
Make a motion to seal the non-public session minutes. Roll call vote required.
Under
Selectman
section,
Bugby?
under section C.
Under section C, sorry.
Second?
No roll call
Roll call vote.
Yes.
Selectman-
Yes,
Yes.
motion passes.
Motion passes.
Now's the next one.
And it could take a mental giant to see that the motion passed.
Yeah, well, here, now number 11.
There's three people, three voices. You got number 11. Okay, any miscellaneous unfinished business? Selectman Bugby.
The Lamprey Regional Cooperative Trucking Group met and recommended to the full board to sell the truck. So we sold our truck for $40,000. The full board accepted that and sold the truck. In regards to the interest was supposed to be 2%. But what they did is they charged us only what they were earning at that particular time over those period of times, which is like 1.1%, which came that we would owe them $41,120 or whatever. They forgave the $1,620, so we don't have to pay anything. None of the towns have to pay any of the interest or anything else to pay off the truck. So we're out of the trucking business, and we're going to look at haulers. Shipyard is one of them that Toby's looking at. So there's going to be no financial implication to the town of Lee in terms of selling the truck and paying off the truck. So just wanted to let you know.
What about this whole situation with the paper?
Well,
Is there anything going on with that? I mean,
he's trying different things, like putting it in the MSW to get rid of it. China doesn't accept it.
Correct.
So they're looking at other outlets as well in terms of, to get rid of it. But before we used to get money, now we have to pay to get rid of it.
What if we did a joint incinerator?
Don't like incinerators anymore.
Huh? Well, no, wait a minute. If you look into incinerators, you'd find that the more modern ones don't have the emissions problem that the earlier incinerators had. So I'm just saying, sooner or later, something's gonna have to happen to this paper that we got.
The NRA is meeting later this month, I don't remember what date it is. And I suspect, because everybody's in this particular situation.
Right, exactly.
So I suspect something's gonna happen so that there'll be a place to put this stuff. Like somebody, because before, it was almost all going to China because China wanted it.
Right.
So now we have all this paper. I suspect somebody's gonna come up with some sneaky idea to do something with it. I don't know what that is, I'm just guessing. But they're gonna have to find something to do with it. So somebody's gonna come up with some recycling thing, I don't know. But most likely something will happen. But, the other thing is people are getting blasé about recycling. It was cool when it started.
Now it's work. Yeah, that's work.
But some people embrace it, that's part of their routine, they do it. Other people never took it on, so.
There's an awful lot of paper building up.
The other thing we spoke about last time, which I guess we should put on the agenda, is doing a subcommittee or some kind of committee to look at that whole.
To establish a committee.
So, can we put that on the agenda for next time and have Mr. Bennigan show up? Because I think it would be beneficial to have him, interested citizens who are interested in that kind of thing, get together and look at, is there other things we can do with recycling? Is there, how do we get rid of this stuff? That whole question that we have.
Well, the only thing we're making money off of is aluminum right now, right?
Well, you're making money on some other things.
Cardboard, I think.
Cardboard's big. Newspaper, I think it's newspaper. But I want somebody that's interested in those things and knowledgeable to come up with what should we be doing? Should we be charging more for all these things?
Just to back up for a second, Toby told me face to face, the only thing we're making money off of right now is aluminum, so.
Well, it's fluctuating.
That's all I know.
So, Julie, could you look back in the records, because we did have a committee at one time. There was about 4 or 5 people that were on that committee, and I think we even had procedures and policy, if you can send those to us.
It was a long time ago that that committee
Solid Waste
existed.
Committee.
Yeah.
see what I can find.
See what you can dig up, I appreciate that. Because why reinvent the wheel if we have a little bit, we won't have to do the whole wheel.
Yeah.
Sounds good. I don't have anything.
So,
Yes.
can I ask, I don't know, has I think it's the VFW, Dale Hardy, has he requested the presence of somebody from the board to do the Memorial Day?
He normally does.
I saw him yesterday, I should have asked him. Can somebody,
Normally the chairman of the board does it.
yeah, I nominate Mr. Brown.
I do too. To give a speech.
I'm
You don't have to
sure.
give a speech, you just have
Aren't you
to,
a little treat?
you have to say a few
I'll be
words.
happy to give a speech for Memorial Day.
There you go. We like to spread the load.
So could
What's that
somebody
way it's spelled? Load.
contact Mr. Harding and just say, do you need somebody this year? I think they do, but,
And then we already have a volunteer.
yeah, and we have a willing
If I
volunteer.
have to do it, tell me. And I'll do it. Tell me how many hours I got.
I think they give you like 1 minute.
Yeah, that's about it.
How much, 1 minute?
1 minute.
Max. Because they have a speaker that comes.
They have a formal speaker.
Well, why do they need me?
Because you have to welcome them
Yes,
as the
to
board
the
of
town.
selectmen.
Yeah,
Okay, I can do that.
you have to make nice with the natives.
Yes, absolutely. Then you gotta sing My Country 'Tis of Thee.
And it is. I heard, did you sing it last year, John?
I sing a lot,
Well, it certainly-
unfortunately.
Certainly explain the low turnout.
We're really good today. I hope you're all watching this, you know.
Can I ask a question about, we had a concern with the construction they're going to be doing at Massway and putting up, did you get any response back from
A
them?
fence? Oh,
Yes.
yeah, they put up a
Okay.
real construction.
Yeah, they do, they have a fence up.
All right, I haven't noticed it, okay, all right, thank you.
Gotta be there. Did you
Good,
sign it?
anything, planning board will be on Thursday night, I'll let you know next time.
Okay. So, motion to adjourn?
Oh, the 30th of May, 10 o'clock is the sale, sheriff's sale?
Yes,
Yes.
thank you.
What?
The sheriff's sale at 101
Oh, the
Stepping
sheriff's
Stones
sale,
is
yeah.
May 30th.
I was thinking about showing up.
You're not gonna make a bid on it.
No, I want to see what it goes for.
I mean, do they, have you been to one of these? I've never been to one. I mean, do they stand on the stoop and say,
I don't know.
do you have any idea how?
I have no idea.
I've been to a mortgage sale, but not to a sheriff's sale.
I understand you have to have so much money available right on you, right at that point.
I don't know about sheriff's sale. The mortgage sale, yeah, you have to put up a, however much
Bond or something right away, yeah.
But hopefully, because we're bidding the 92, whatever it is, right? Whatever they owe us, because there's
I
expenses
think
in
it's
there.
90, well, it's 93 something right now, but there have been additional legal expenses.
Okay. But the indication is the neighbor is interested in it or something.
Yes, yes. And we did get last Friday a notice from the court that the VRC and Mr. McDonald are to cease and desist, sending repeated motions and requests to
Oh, this is from the
Superior
court,
Court.
yes, yeah. He was doing a lot of.
They finally reached their limit.
Okay. That's all I had.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.